Alright, Professor Jim Schultz here from my Finance 512 class. As promised, I wanted to go ahead and shoot a video here on kind of looking at kind of how to find some potential stocks that could be subject to a short squeeze. As we talked about in class, this is something that's really difficult to trade on because you don't really know. Nobody really knows if it's going to happen because nobody can really see the order book, and so you don't really know, not the full order book, so you don't really know where all the stop orders might be clustered. And so it's really something that you just kind of want to be aware of, if you're interested in a stock. I don't use this as like a decision maker. It's not a metric that causes me to make my decision one way or another, but it is something I'll look at just to kind of get a feel for, hey, is this stock, is there any potential here for a short squeeze? And so while we're doing this, I thought we would also go ahead and look at some PEG ratios, just because you're going to see on Yahoo Finance here, which is where I'm at, this is extremely easy to find. And so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to mention is quite a day in the markets today. You've got the S&P up 20 points, the Dow up 180, and one thing that's really interesting is yesterday, so today is June 18th, yesterday, June 17th, you may have noticed that the S&P 500 closed at 2100 on the nose. And so we talked about big round numbers in class, and hey, is there anything there? Is there anything to that theory? I don't know. I personally, I'm not really sure. I think it might be more an old wives' tale, to be honest with you guys, but it's just another thing to be aware of, right? This is all about gathering information and just trying to put ourselves in a position to be successful. And so I don't know, there might be something there, but 2100, I mean, it's hard to get a much bigger, rounder number than that. 18,000 on the Dow is another one that's pretty interesting, and obviously 5,000 on the NASDAQ was something that the NASDAQ had some trouble with a few weeks ago. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to look at a few stocks today. Let's look at Apple to begin with. So AAPL. So you click on Apple, it brings you to the kind of the home page for Apple. And the first thing I want to note is look at the PE ratio of Apple. It's about 16. Now that TTM stands for trailing 12 months, which means, remember, the PE ratio is stock price divided by earnings, right? Well, when it comes to earnings, sometimes when you're doing financial analysis, sometimes you want to use earnings that have actually happened, and sometimes you want to use earnings that are expected, so a forecast. If you see TTM by something, that means they're using the earnings that have actually happened, so that they over the course of the last year or 12 months. So that's what your TTM stands for. So the PE ratio of Apple is almost 16. So based on the PE analysis, this looks like it could be kind of on the expensive side, right? Close to average, but getting close to expensive. Well, if you click on the key statistics, what you find is Yahoo Finance actually calculates the PEG ratio for you. So you don't have to go and find the growth rate to try to figure this out for yourself. Now, if you want to go try to find the growth rate, you certainly can, and some other sources will make that available for you. It's a little harder to find than some of these other things. But you have a PEG ratio that's just over 1. So as I talked about in class, based on the anticipated growth rate of Apple, it makes Apple a bargain at these levels at 127.88. Now, what about a short squeeze? Well, scroll down a little bit, and in the share statistics section, you've got all the information you need to try to figure out if Apple is a candidate for a short squeeze. Okay, number of shares short, 61.6 million. Average daily volume over the last 3 months, about 45 million. If you take, let me grab my calculator here. If you take, let's do it, 61.68 million divided by 45.75 gives you 1.35. So that short interest ratio that we talked about in class, which is also referred to as the days to cover ratio, is 1.35. So is Apple a candidate for a short squeeze? No, probably not. Not really. And so there's really nothing here in terms of a short squeeze potential. Now, Yahoo Finance actually calculates the short interest ratio for you, and you see they get 1.2. So their number is a little bit different from ours. A lot of times, if it's easy to do, I like to go ahead and calculate the ratio myself, because financial news sources, they will all do things in a slightly different way. They're all going to have their own proprietary method for figuring out these ratios. And sometimes you don't exactly know what they're inputting into the calculation. And so, like for a PEG ratio, I don't mind using what they've given me because the growth rate can be difficult to find sometimes. But a short ratio, I usually just calculate it myself. And so that's why my 1.35 is different from the 1.2. So that's Apple. Really nothing to see there. Let's look at Chipotle, CMG. All right, so Chipotle, wow, PE ratio of 39. So that's very expensive. So now you have a stock that is very expensive. So you would think, hey, I don't really want to buy this stock if I'm doing PE ratio analysis. So again, we're going to click on key statistics. And with Chipotle, you've got a PEG ratio of 1.6. So that's actually pretty reasonable, right? That's actually, again, 2 is kind of your ceiling, but they've got a long way to get up to 2. So when you factor in that growth rate, Chipotle is not that expensive at all. It's kind of fairly priced. Let's go down. Let's take a look at the share statistics. Try to see if we have a short squeeze. Shares short, 1.16 million. So 1.16 million divided by average volume, only about 500,000. Chipotle is not a really actively traded stock. So you've got a short ratio. I got 2.11. Yahoo's got 2.3. Still, not really nothing too interesting here from a short squeeze standpoint. All right, final one I want to look at. I want to keep this video a little shorter than the others because, as you guys have learned, both in class and now in cyberspace, I do tend to get a little verbose. And so my goal today is to wrap this up more quickly. Tesla, TSLA. Tesla is a stock that I follow very actively. Okay, so the PE ratio, NA. Why? It's because the earnings per share are negative. So we've already kind of talked about that, right? You're never going to see a negative PE ratio. Key statistics. All right, so the PEG ratio is interesting because they actually do throw a negative number in there, but because that doesn't really make any sense to me. Because the earnings are negative, your PEG ratio becomes really useless. So this number really doesn't mean anything. I would not look into that at all. But let's go down. What do we got in terms of a short squeeze possibility? Number of shares short, 25 million. So 25 million. Divided by average volume for 3 months, 4.4 million. So divided by 4.4. So I got 5.7. So we're actually pretty close this time. So spot on. 5.7. This is a candidate for a short squeeze. This is a candidate for a potential situation where the shorts could get in a lot of trouble if Tesla keeps climbing higher. And this could be part of what's happened the last couple of days. If you've actually looked at Tesla, and I follow Tesla pretty closely, it's had a couple of jumps up in price, and there's really no good reason. I think Tesla they put a recharging station into an Arby's yesterday or 2 days ago, and that was the biggest news headline for Tesla. And so I can't imagine that is what is driving the stock price. That doesn't really make any sense. So there could be some short squeezes going on here in Tesla, and with a short ratio of 5.7, there could be more to come. And I apologize for that's Crouton in the background, my little dog, and so he sees some random passerby, so I'm gonna have to tend to him. But that's all I had for you guys today. I hope this is helpful on finding the short squeeze information and the PEG ratio information. So I will see you guys.